Hey everybody, Nick Espinoza, your chief security fanatic here, and today we are talking about the international chip shortage, also known as Chipageddon. It is projected now to last until mid-2022. This is what's going on. This obviously is very important, and this is coming from a great article on this by Renana Ashkenazi, and I think she did a fantastic job. And so a lot of what I'm saying is almost verbatim from this article, and that is great. I mean, I think that you know that basically the world runs on microprocessors. Your cell phone, your computer, your cars, the toaster you plug into your Wi-Fi, all of these things basically need semiconductors. They need microprocessors, and we are going through a shortage, and that shortage has been going on since 2022. But a lot of people don't realize all of the core reasons for this, and it seems like it's just a combination of everything working together to make this just a really bad shortage. But here's what's going on. Obviously, we had a pandemic, very hardcore lockdowns in 2020. That caused global supply chain problems all over the place because obviously we weren't shipping things or couldn't move things, basically due to coronavirus problems and all of that. On top of that, we had the blocking of the Suez Canal. If you remember that massive cargo ship, the Evergreen, basically blocking what is essentially one of the world's busiest trade routes that caused massive delays, not just for microchips, but for everything else on the planet that was moving around. This past February here in Texas in the United States, basically we had massive power outages due to Texas's independent power grid, and that forced Samsung, NXP Connectors, and Infineon to shut down their factories temporarily, which obviously slowed their production. Taiwan also had a massive problem, and we will get to Taiwan. They had a drought, and fabrication technology, especially their plants, are huge water consumers, so that didn't help the situation at all. We also had a fire last March in the Renesas chip factory in Japan. They manufacture 2/3 of the automotive, basically the chips for the automotive industry. That significantly impacted the entire supply chain. This also contributed to the rise of used car prices as well. If you're shopping for a used car, now is not the time to buy, but now is time to sell your existing car. Here we go. Now, there's also some other concerns overall about the semiconductor processor industry as well. A report from BZG from April of this year reported that 100% of the world's most advanced semiconductor manufacturing capacity, that basically are the microprocessors under 10 nanometers, are basically currently located in South Korea. They run 8% of the entire 10 nanometer or below semiconductor industry, and Taiwan, that has 92%. Taiwan has 92% of basically the less than 10 nanometer industry, and that's obviously a huge problem. China, on top of that, is ruling the globe in assembly, packaging, testing, and shipping and all of that. China manufactures pretty much everything, for the most part, not everything, but a lot, and you know it. So, with these supply chain issues due to pandemic and everything else, and a major drought that brought down the industry, not to mention a fire in Texas and on, we've also got a geopolitical issue going on with this one as well. And I don't care what your politics are, but here's what's going on. When the United States government restricted technology exports to China, basically triggering a trade war between the United States and China under the Trump administration, some Chinese manufacturers started stockpiling, preparing for further restrictions from the United States. Huawei, for example, used to be one of the industry's biggest chip players. If you recall, basically President Trump called out them and Xiaomi to essentially blacklist them for potential issues with security and all of that. But this is the net effect of that. Security concerns aside, if Huawei is one of the biggest chip manufacturers, chip buyers, this is a huge problem. And so in anticipation of further blacklisting, they began stockpiling chips in 2019, meaning they were starting to buy up the supply, and that led to tight capacities at basically Huawei's main chip supplier, TSMC, out of Taiwan. They are the largest manufacturer, if I recall, of semiconductors. Further, President Trump's restrictions on SMIC also meant that companies had to shift to other manufacturers, and basically that increased the bottleneck as well. Essentially, we cut them off. They started consuming that supply that the United States and other countries needed and started stockpiling that in anticipation of something like this, that obviously basically jacks up the prices of various things as well, including stock prices for the chip manufacturers, which we've seen a rise in as well. And so the question is, where does this actually end. Some manufacturers are forecasting the shortage will last until at least mid-2022, which is what I started with. Flex, for example, which is the world's third biggest electronics contract manufacturer, said that the manufacturers it relies on for its semiconductors have pushed back their forecast for when this shortage will end. Some of the more pessimistic analysis from Forrester, for example, believe that we could actually see this last until 2023. And apparently the most optimistic one was Cisco, saying early 2022. But either way you cut it, we are going to go through a processor shortage. By virtue of that, we may see prices rise on consumer goods, meaning that $1,000 iPhone, which I'm sure is a lot more now at this point, but using easy numbers would be $1,500 instead of $1,000 because obviously everybody is scrambling for these, so that's going to slow down production. The curious part I've got outside of this is, what does this look like in terms of environmental impact? Because if we're manufacturing less or we can't output fast enough, by virtue of that, we're just simply making less products. Now, that said, we will catch up to that demand, as economies recover. And the U.S. apparently went through a 2-month recession as a result of the pandemic, according to basically the federal government that is calculating all of these things. And so we'll see where this goes. But obviously, this is a huge problem. If you are in the technology field in any way, shape, or form, and you're buying technology products from computers to phones, for whatever, for your business or your clients or your customers or whatever that is, be prepared to pay more or have shortages. And a lot of companies that do basically sell or resell computer equipment are complaining of things like this. Not to mention if, in cybersecurity, when I'm looking at firewalls and other threat detection, capabilities that require processors, as we all require processors in some way, shape, or form. So this is going to be a huge problem. I really haven't spoken that much about this, but it's going to start impacting, I think, more deeply, as right now we've got, let's say, existing stockpiles we're starting to go through. And so into 2022, we may see prices rise and all of that. We'll see what happens. Hopefully that won't be the case, but, here we are. And so that is your news of the day. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at NickAESP. And please feel free to subscribe to me at YouTube as well. And as always, stay safe, stay online, and please stay private. Thanks, everyone.